All right, today we're jumping into one of the most fascinating books in the New Testament, the Gospel of John. And what makes it so different is that unlike the other Gospels, this one has a very clear, upfront theological mission. And it tells you exactly what his goal is right from the start.
So let's start here. This verse, which actually comes near the end of the book, is the master key to unlocking the whole thing. This isn't just a biography. Nope. It's a carefully constructed argument with one very specific goal, and it's aimed directly at you, the reader.
So if this book is basically a persuasive case, then what's the evidence? That's what we're going to walk through right now. We're going to break down the structure of John's argument for why you should believe.
First, a little context. The author is traditionally believed to be the Apostle John, someone who was actually there, an eyewitness to everything he describes. And he's writing pretty late in the first century, which means he's had decades to really reflect on the deeper meaning of everything he saw.
And this is where you really see how different John's game plan is. You know, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they give you this more chronological, boots-on-the-ground view of Jesus' ministry. John, though, he's flying at a much higher altitude. He's way less concerned with what Jesus did and a whole lot more focused on who Jesus is. You could almost call it a spiritual portrait.
And this unique focus is obvious from the very first line. John doesn't kick things off with a manger in Bethlehem. Nope, he begins before creation, before time itself, with this really profound philosophical idea.
He introduces Jesus as the Word, or in the original Greek, the Logos. Now, this was an absolutely brilliant choice of words because Logos was packed with meaning for everyone in his audience. To Greek thinkers, it was the divine reason that brought order to the entire universe. To Jewish readers, the Word of God was that powerful creative force you see back in Genesis. So by calling Jesus the Logos, John is basically building a bridge between both worlds, presenting Jesus as the personal source of all logic, all meaning, and all creation.
This one sentence, this is the theological bedrock for the entire book. What he's arguing here is that Jesus isn't just a prophet or a wise teacher. He's saying Jesus is eternal, fully divine, and the very agent through whom the universe was made.
And boom, here it is, the central miracle that John presents, the incarnation. The idea that the infinite, divine logic of the cosmos entered our world and our history as a man. So right from the get-go, the stakes are set incredibly high.
Okay, so that's a huge claim, right? The question is, how does John prove it? Well, he builds his case around two main pillars of evidence, these miraculous signs and Jesus' own I am statements. Let's look at the first set.
To make his argument, John carefully handpicks 7 specific miracles. But here's the thing, these aren't just random displays of power.
He calls them signs for a reason. Each one is designed to point beyond the miracle itself to a much deeper truth about who Jesus is. They're like giant flashing signposts pointing directly to his divine nature.
And if you look at them, they escalate. They show Jesus' authority over every part of life, over nature, over sickness, over lack. And then you get to the final sign, raising Lazarus, that's him showing ultimate authority over death itself.
The second line of evidence builds on the first, and guess what? We see that number 7 again. This time, it's a series of really profound things Jesus says about himself.
Now, this phrase, I am, is a huge deal. For John's original audience, hearing a man say this would have been absolutely shocking. Why? Because it directly echoes the sacred name that God reveals to Moses at the burning bush in the book of Exodus. For Jesus to use this phrase for himself was a clear, unmistakable claim to be one with God.
Each of these statements presents Jesus not just our way, but as the exclusive source for everything we need, for spiritual life, for guidance, for salvation. You put these together with the 7 signs, and you have the core of John's argument for who Jesus really is.
So after laying out all this evidence to establish Jesus' identity, the gospel makes a big pivot. It starts asking, okay, so what? If Jesus is who he says he is, what does that mean for us? How does that change the way we live? You see, in John's gospel, belief isn't some passive thing you do in your head. No, it has to lead to action. And the central command for his followers is this radical, self-sacrificial love modeled on the way he loved them. And that love is put on full display in the climax of the story. The crucifixion isn't shown as a defeat, but as a willing sacrifice, the completion of his mission. The resurrection is the ultimate sign, the final proof that everything he claimed was true. And it all leads to this incredible moment with Thomas, the guy who doubted, who finally sees the evidence and declares, "My Lord and my God."
So after the signs, the I am statements, the new commandment, and the resurrection,
The gospel brings its whole case to a close by coming full circle, right back to where we started, its purpose.
And there it is again. The entire narrative, everything from the eternal word in the beginning to the empty tomb at the end, it has all been carefully constructed to lead the reader right to this very point, to a moment of decision.
So in the end, John's gospel isn't just a story to be analyzed or a piece of history to be studied. It's a question. It's a question posed to every single person who reads it. After laying out all the evidence, it leaves the final verdict up to you. The closing argument rests on that single personal question.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us.